The Viking era is one of the most bloodiest and most brutal in European history. So let's make a fun and educational video about it. What do you think? The Viking era wasn't anything like the horned helmet myths would have you believe, but maybe there's more to Vikings you don't know. Before we get started, you know what to do. Ring the bell so you can stay notified on all of our newest videos about jewels, gemstones, history, treasures, skeletons, video games, pop culture, obscure references. Dudes, we've got it all. Back to the long ships. The Viking Age is generally considered to have kicked off with the Lindisfarne raid in 793. Lindisfarne is a small island off the north coast of England, but there really wasn't an England at the time of the Vikings. Lindisfarne was the religious center in the Kingdom of Northumbria. The monastery was founded in 634 by the Irish monk Saint Aidan, and eventually became Christianity's home base in northern England. The island was totally unprepared for the Vikings. The raid was brutal and bloody, and many Christians in England basically viewed the raid as an act of religious terrorism by the pagan Vikings. But the Vikings weren't religious terrorists. No one really knows what kicked off the Viking Age. There are competing theories about population changes, desire for plunder, technological improvements, or just old-fashioned curiosity. One fact is they came from all over. Vikings came from modern-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Another fact is they looted and plundered like crazy. Because they weren't Christian, Vikings had no problem stealing gold and silver religious items like crucifixes and reliquaries. Jewels could be removed from jewelry and cups, and pretty much every metal could be melted down for reuse. Many plundered items were literally reused. An 8th century reliquary box meant to hold saints' remains, and likely from Ireland, has a 10th century runic inscription. Ranavik owns this casket. So casket translates to a kind of jewelry or trinket box, and Ranavik is a Scandinavian woman's name. Maybe she never knew her 200-year-old jewelry box once held human bones. As for precious metals, silver was more common than gold during the Viking Age. It was measured by weight and was the main form of currency in the era. Silver was also used decoratively. A Viking hoard of silver was found in Germany in 2018 and included not just coins, but also necklaces, rings, brooches, even Thor's hammer. Archaeologists think the hoard is dated to the era of the Danish king Bluetooth. Yes, that Bluetooth. The tech is named after the Viking. How cool is that? Raids were intermittent for nearly a century after Lindisfarne. Vikings brought plunder, slaves, and tales of new kingdoms back to Scandinavia, but many also settled down. The Vikings made themselves at home all around Europe. In southern Europe, the Vikings raided as far as Seville and Pisa. There were Scandinavian settlements in Ireland, they founded Limerick, and also parts of Dublin. They famously raided Paris in 845, thanks to 120 ships that sailed down the Seine, leaving only after receiving a ransom of silver and gold. By the 860s, it was clear the Vikings were planning a conquest of the kingdoms in England. Guess what? They succeeded. They took cities and towns across northern and eastern England, and a large chunk of the country was eventually held under Dane law. Viking and Scandinavian culture left its mark all across Europe and the world. The Galloway Hoard was buried in Scotland towards the end of the Viking Age and is one of the richest archaeological finds of the era. Typically, in Britain and Ireland, archaeologists will find one particular type of item, mostly coins, mostly armbands, mostly pots. But the Galloway Hoard is different. There are Viking, Scottish, Anglo-Saxon, and Central European items found here, which is a sign of the trading culture that must have existed. And Viking culture, full of raiders and slaves, also had metal workers whose job was to create beautiful, intricate works of art. Some objects, like this cross, would have been further decorated with niello. Usually made of sulfur, copper, lead, or silver, niello was a black substance used as an inlay on etched metal objects, which made the etchings stand out. Will epic sagas be written about your adventures? I hope mine are. Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. For more information on the topics we discussed today, check out the links below. Thanks for watching.